Good evening, everybody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are all on the lifeboat. And that's Marf. Love the horns. I think I said this. It's like a 15-minute song, but the horns. I don't know. Horns do it for me. Really, really dig that. All right, people. Welcome to Sunday night on the lifeboat. So, if you got to look at the thumbnail, and you've been on the boat for any length of time, then you're probably thinking, haven't we done this like 4 times? This would be the 4th. We've done it 3 times. This one here is going to be number 4. But these things kind of have a way of evolving, and that's, I guess, the nature of the beast, and a sign of the times, and all of that, right? Because the more that we look at these situations, and the more you deep dive into them, the more it gets you asking some pretty tough questions. And while nobody wants to just tap out, and I think at some level it would feel like tapping out if we were to say, you know what, maybe this just isn't working out. But the newest stats are out, and since the war on drugs started, and was called the war on drugs, right? It was official. Since that started, we have spent $1 trillion. I almost want to do this one, right? $1 trillion. A trillion. You know, they say if you stack $1 bills, it would go to the moon and back. $1 trillion. Terrifying amount of money that we have spent to fight the introduction of drugs into the United States, and to keep their proliferation from getting to kids and people all over the country, causing everything it's causing right now, right? $1 trillion with absolutely no effect, none. I mean, occasionally you'll see a bust. You'll see something that makes for a good photo op. There'll be a couple of guys standing around looking like they just came back from a hunt. You know what I mean? Usually got a gun on their hip, and there'll be kilos and stuff stacked in front of them, or bags of pills up to your elbows, right? Just piles of them everywhere. And you got to love it. You got to love that they took it off the street. I'm not belittling that, but it doesn't happen very often. And we know that even when it's happening, it's maybe 20% is getting caught, and the rest is just cruising right across the border. And that's a little frightening. It really is. So as I started putting this together and thought, I'm going to do this again. You know, we got a lot of new crew members that probably haven't heard us talk about this thing. Hey, here's my brother. Probably some new crew that may or may not have caught one of our shows. The debate on legalization for a very long time hinged on one drug, right? There was no one that even wanted to entertain the idea of legalizing, more than cannabis, right? Cannabis was illegal under the Schedule 1 narcotic, right? Schedule 1 means that there is absolutely no medical use whatsoever, and there is a very strong possibility for abuse. The ability to get addicted, that kind of thing. So you've got things that you would think of, like tar, heroin, and cocaine and things like that. And then weed hits it in there, L.S.D. And you hear weed and you just think, I don't know that should be Schedule 1. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. The insane thing is this: once you put something onto this schedule, it's never coming off. So I started to do a little research on how this whole Schedule 1, 2, and 3 thing actually works. I always knew that Schedule 2 narcotics covered all painkillers, opiates, everything like that. So it was always almost a joke, you know what I mean? Someone would say, hey, how you doing? Good, you got any Schedule 2s? That was just one of those things that got said a lot. I'd be doing a lot better with a bunch of Schedule 2 narcotics. The Schedule 3 is stuff that is, they have use for it, and it's like right on the periphery where you almost don't even care that people are doing it. Things like steroids, although ketamine falls under that heading as well. ketamine, steroids, buprenorphine, Suboxone is now a Schedule 3 drug. Once you put one onto a Schedule 1, getting it off there would take literally an act of Congress, right? It's a very difficult thing to get that changed in any way. How do they get it there? They put in a form, and the form basically says, okay, we think cannabis sativa or cannabis whatever, we think that needs to be a regulated drug. We don't believe that there's any medical use whatsoever to this, and it is very, very dangerous. If nobody says, hey, wait a sec, that's BS, right? That doesn't make any sense at all. Someone has to fight it. Someone has to step up to the plate and say, nah, man, that doesn't make any sense. And then they basically argue it in court. And if the whichever party wins, the guy can come back the following year, try again. But the placing of cannabis on the Schedule 1 had nothing to do with the drug. It really didn't. It was far more of a political thing, and we could talk about that for an entire show. And I probably have a couple of times. But there's no reason to go down that rabbit hole on this one. When you start talking about legalizing multiple substances, you can almost hear Mr. Mackey, right, from South Park. Drugs are bad, okay? And we take it for granted that all drugs are bad. They really are, right? All drugs are awful. They're all bad. They're not. They're really not. And I know that this isn't going to be a popular opinion, but I've always said this isn't an anti-drug channel. There are substances on these lists that have absolutely legitimate reasons to be on this planet. I don't think Dilaudid is a drug that doesn't need to be around. I think that if you have a high opiate tolerance and you have hurt yourself, boy, Dilaudid is a ticket. It absolutely will take away pain. It will. And it should take away pain for a short period of time, providing the doctor is in a jackwagon who gives you a 75-day supply. Most people can take that and then, be done with it. As soon as the pain's over, so are they. But what's happening now is that a drug that was designed with the best of intentions is destroying the planet. The Fent was not designed by especially the street version of it, was not designed by a big pharmaceutical company. It was designed by a guy who was actually really into the whole drug scene, very into it, and he felt horrendous for the people addicted to the needle. He was trying to find a very inexpensive drug that heroin addicts could use instead of heroin. That really is how this, just finished researching it. The guy died in prison, but that was his goal. And he went to prison because after, cranking this stuff out, it got really ugly really quick. A lot of people whose tolerance wasn't where it needed to be took this stuff and died. And they traced the drug back, as they often do, and it came back to him, and the guy got incarcerated, where he spent the rest of his life and died. But LSD is another really unusual example. When LSD came out, there's a stigma with every single drug. If I mention any drug in the world, you have a visual image of what that drug is and who the people who do it, right? If I say acid, within a couple of seconds, someone's thinking bad trip, right? Bad trip. Everybody knows what that is, and it's made out to be the most horrific thing in the whole world, and it's terrifying, right? And the people who take it, they wear a lot of tie-dye, right? And they usually, Grateful Dead tour, a lot of LSD. Maybe they're going to the Fish concert, but you have an image in your head of what LSD is instantly. Well, when it came out, it was being studied, and it was being studied medically for a whole host of things that they believed this was going to be groundbreaking on. Even things like Parkinson's, right? All kinds of different things that they believed there was a shot at this stuff, treating them. Unfortunately, the drug got a really horrendous reputation really quickly. Now, I'm not advocating sheets of acid at every concert across the United States. However, it probably would have been a really good idea to study this stuff because it would have opened doorways to a whole lot of other types of medicine. There are countries that are talking about just the teeniest amounts of substances like that to treat depression. And they're having a lot of success and a lot less side effects than some of the stuff that prescriptions are written for. But again, not doing it in the United States because somebody put down that they thought that ought to be a Schedule I narcotic. And nobody fought it. And because nobody fought it, it got put onto the Schedule I list. And it is going to remain there until the end of time. Or until we tap out as a country and say, you know what, the drug war is over. We lost it, 40 years ago. And we could spend another $1 trillion. Second largest budget in the U.S. Largest budget being the military. Coming in at a close second, the war on drugs. I think that a whole lot to do with it is just people protecting their little fiefdom, their little kingdom. At the end of every fiscal year, they got a pile of money in the bank. They got to spend every penny of it so that next year they get that plus 10% or 15% for every single year. They just bump it up, bump it up, bump it up. Pro forma, as long as you spend every penny of the budget, the following year you're going to get that budget plus 15% for inflation and you needing a bigger crew and yada yada. So these people just blow money. Where at the end of the year, get me a couple of tanks. Urban assault vehicles. We may need those to take on crack houses. So go get me a couple of Bradley tanks. I want some drones, get some of those. It literally is just a shopping spree for every idiot that ever wore a badge in this drug war. Got nothing done, right? But they're spending money like there's no tomorrow. Money that, of course, we don't have. I'm not going to go down that political rabbit hole either. But there are groups of people out there right now who are looking at this thing it's really, really hard to argue with these people's logic. And, they have a very sober approach. If you listen to the things they're saying, in the U.S. currently, right now, 59 million people are going to use drugs recreationally this year. There's only 330 million of us. If you got 59 million of them who are using illicit substances this year, how about 63% of the country is also using alcohol? Not I'm having one at dinner, but using alcohol as a drug for all intents and purposes, abusing it. 63% is the newest figure. You take the 63% of people that are boozing, you take the 59 million, and we have an entire society that on the daily is trying to change how they feel. They're trying to change their mental situation through the use of a chemical. But that's bad, right? It's bad. If I say methamphetamine, I want you to get a picture in your head of the people I'm talking about, right? The people that do meth, you instantly got a vision in your head, don't you? And I'm not bagging on anybody or anybody's drug of choice, but I think you're lying if you don't tell me that instantly you start seeing something in your mind. Probably some teeth missing, right? This person's got the dark bags under their eyes, look like they've been up for, 5-6 weeks. You get that image in your head. Tweaker, right? If I say any drug, we have the stereotypical version of that in our head, right? If I say PCP, you're thinking about people ripping their clothing off, right? And getting beat by police officers who are shooting them with rubber bullets and they're bouncing off like it doesn't matter because it has turned this, person into an absolute RoboCop. And those stories happen. They absolutely happen. But because of these images that we get in our head, it creates a problem when you start talking about trying to legalize anything. Because no one is actually looking at, what's going to happen if these things are legalized. That's not where their head goes. Their head goes to how scary all of the things that we have created in our dome. How scary is it? The tweakers and the coke heads, crack heads. You see Pookie from that that movie. Chris Rock played but these images get seared into your brain. And it does a wild disservice to this conversation. Because if that's how you judge this, then there's never even going to be a discussion. Because every drug turns whoever takes it into a monster. Right? Horror stories. Absolute horror stories. Psilocybin. Yeah, dude ate too many mushrooms and stepped out of a window thinking he could fly. Right? You just hear the same stories regurgitated back again and again and again. And you get this image. Well, we really need to look at these substances and have a very legitimate dialogue, because something is going to have to give, and something is going to have to give very, very quickly, because our country can't justify continuing to blow money at the rate that they're blowing it. It's not possible. And it would be one thing if they were blowing that much cash and they were successful. They're not, right? We're blowing that much cash to fail. So there is a big movement right now afoot to legalize everything. And I do mean everything. That would be weed, all benzos, every painkiller. There would be nothing held back. LSD, DMT, every alphabet drug you could think of. PCP, all of those drugs that come with usually 3 initials, all of those. Amphetamines and methamphetamines and barbiturates. Not leaving out too much there, right? That's what they're talking about doing, people. And there are people who right now are serious as hell about trying to push this through. And the funny thing, funny not ha-ha, funny ironic, the reason that they want to do this is because they think if they do, we have a better chance of protecting our children in a society where all of these drugs are legal versus in the society that we have right now. On the plus side of the ledger, right? You draw a line down the middle of the page and you got the good news on the one side and the bad news on the other, right? Why would we not do this? And why would we do this? Those big organizations south of the border, we would put an absolute hurt into their entire business model if we were to go legal with all of these substances. I think everybody can agree to that, right? If you could walk into a dispensary style store anywhere in your city and buy anything, drug dealers are gone. They're instantly out of business. And there's a real benefit to that. I hope everybody can see that. The vast majority of crimes that we have taking place in this country revolve around drugs in one way or another. The statistic that they like to throw out is 80% of people who are incarcerated are in there for drug crimes. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they were convicted for possession, but it means that what they were doing, the centerpiece of that, revolved around drugs. Whether it was them just trying to get high, or they had a habit that, if they weren't stealing, they couldn't take care of. Whatever the litmus test that they're using, 80%. I think that's low. I honestly don't remember meeting anybody when I was in prison that didn't have a drug habit and that it didn't play a very serious part in what landed them in prison. That was not my experience. Currently, right now in the U.S., we have 2.25 million people incarcerated. 2.25 million, which is a fairly frightening number when you compare us to any other civilized country on the planet. the statistic that you hear getting kicked around often is that we make up 4% of the population of the earth, right? 330 million people makes up about 4% of the world's population. But 25% of the incarcerated people on the planet reside in our country. We lock up more people than anywhere else in the world. And the number has gotten to, are you ready? If you're a guy, 1 out of every 20 men in America will go to prison at some point. 1 out of every 20 people. Those numbers used to be like percentages of 1%, 1/2 of 1/4 of 1%. It was never that's 5 points. That's 5% of the population. If you're a guy, it's considerably smaller if you're a woman. It's like 1.9%, really, really low. But for guys, that is 5% are going to end up in prison. There's something damn wrong with the society if 5% of your guys are ending up in the joint. That should never be that way. It's never been that way before. I promise you, it's never been that way before. Usually you're talking about, 1 out of 100, maybe 1 out of 400 or 500. It's usually an amazingly small number. Not anymore. And the driving force, again and again and again, keeps coming back to dope of one kind or another. So put the cartels out of business, put the drug dealers out of business, and get rid of dope that's killing people. You could now control the strength of what you put out onto the street. You could also control the price. You realize that the amount of money that leaves our country every year, you got to realize that if somebody buys a 10 bag, that money isn't staying here. Somebody who earns $10 at a job, or they get $10 stealing or whatever, but they got $10. When they buy that, that's going to another country south of us. I promise you. I used to ride shotgun with those guys while their wives would go to 3 or 4 different money places, Western Unions and things like that, to send all the cash south of the border. I get 5 or 6 bags of tar just to, puff up and ride around so that, I don't know what the hell I would do if they came after the car. Chances are they'd be coming with weapons. But the amount of money, it becomes an issue for them. For real, money is a hassle. They got duffel bags full of it, right? They're hiding it inside of walls, and they brick it. They get them into bricks like this big, and then they wrap that saran wrap around it. Our money is leaving our country. You know what that does to your economy? Think about it, because it's pretty ridiculous stuff when you start wrapping your brain around just how much of our dough we ship out of the country every day, every damn day. And now we're shipping it out of the country for the right to kill ourselves. Not really working out. It's not working out at all. So by controlling the quality, how many lives are we saving? I don't know, 400 or 500 a day. The analogy, and it's funny because I swear to you people, I never heard anybody use this analogy before we used it on the boat, and now you hear it everywhere. Last week it was used on the floor of Congress. But at 300 people a day, so every other day, the largest airliner that we have in the U.S., if it crashed, it would take the same number of lives as 2 days of this opioid epidemic. Do you think they'd let airplanes continue to take off? Right? After the second one nosedived into the ground, there wouldn't be air travel. The damn brakes on. Because we can't let that happen to our people. We need to protect our people. Unless our people get high. And then screw them. No reason to even talk about it. Sweep it under the rug. Tell everybody the numbers are lower than they really are. And we'll just business as usual. Right? Chugging all along. No big deal. One of the other absolute benefits is that all of these things that have been off the table, that we have not had any ability to study because of their schedule classification, now these things can be put back into a clinical setting where we might find some cures to some really crazy things. I'll tell you something, the research on Ibogaine and the success it has treating people who are really seriously addicted is an amazing thing. Now, there's no one size fits all. There never is, there never will be. I'll tell you straight up, it didn't work for me. I did it. I mean, I quit that day, but they advertise it as your brain will be rewired. You'll never want to do it again as long as you live. Didn't really work out like that for me. But I know people who swear that it did. And we can't even play with it because they decided that they were going to lump that into a specific category. That may be the best weapon we have in the world for people who are just really, really drug addicted. And if you don't know Ibogaine, people, this is a trip. It's akin to any of the trip drugs. This is going to be a ride. It's going to be 8 to 10 hours of you being wasted in a and everyone will every time I say this, somebody says, no, it's not like that. It's like this. It's a lot closer to acid, right, than it is to a Valium. How about if we leave it that way, right? Or an amphetamine. It is a trip drug. It is absolutely a trip drug. I do ketamine therapy for depression, and it is very helpful to me. There is a lot of science behind that. And they're doing wonderful stuff right now with ketamine. They're also doing wonderful stuff with psilocybin for people with PTSD. The vast majority of people coming back from war who just cannot seem to acclimate back to our society, they are now encouraging to either do ketamine or psilocybin. And when I do talks like this, there's again, you hear a drug and your brain goes right to one place, right? So when you say psilocybin, you're thinking mushrooms. And, you think about the time when you ate 7 grams of them and you went to a concert and, you just giggled, and not the same thing. This is literally, there's somebody sitting down with you, and there's a period of time before you take the drug where they prepare you for what you're about to do. And it's not, you're not just trying to go, ooh, do you have one of those things with the lava lamp? Because I love staring at those when I'm tripping. These really are being used in a therapeutic way. And very often you have to go, even with Ibogaine. One of the reasons that I don't think it works for me is if it's done correctly, it's not a one-visit drug. But since you got to go to another country, right, we can't do it in the U.S. So you got to get your biggest bang for the buck. Because if you go south of the border, you're not going to say, I'll just hang out here for the next 5 months so that we can really do this raid. You say, give me as much of it as you can right now, because this is my only shot. I got to be on an airplane in 2 days. So you do 5 times the normal dose or whatever. But the science behind it says you want to do smaller doses and you want to do it over a period of time and work with a counselor to talk about, the drug problem. And very often people report not only are they able to sort of rewire the part of their brain that is most assuredly addicted, but most walk away saying, and I know exactly why I started using in the first place. Now it makes perfect sense to me. There is this enlightenment that kicks in. And I've seen mushrooms dancing on a pizza. Nice. They definitely can bring on hallucinations. They can. I did a lot of them growing up, college and high school. It's really popular in the part of the country I was in. And I was always a fan. I really was. I always thought it was a fun substance. But I didn't have any respect for it. I most assuredly wasn't doing it the way these people are doing it. They take this stuff as serious as they would radiation therapy or chemo, right? It is as sober a process as that. They're using, it's a drug that we know brings on, things like hallucinations and whatever, but they're using it to open up a part of the brain that we just can't seem to open any other way. It requires some pretty heavy duty drugs, or someone that can sit down and they can meditate for 5 or 6 hours, right? and really get to that point where all of a sudden they're kind of having an out-of-body experience because of the amount of time they have been able to sit in complete silence, clearing their mind of all thoughts. Well, you know what? I'm not that cat. You know, I can't get 15 minutes. My brain will race and I'll just go. So, yeah, there are people who can put themselves into altered states. Damn, they're few and far in between. They really are. And if you're suffering from PTSD, chances are you're not sitting down and doing that kind of stuff. You know? And it's, you know, I use the soldiers as an example, but there are a lot of other types of trauma that they treat with this these days. I keep thinking I didn't start drinking and smoking pot until 14 or 15. Totally forgot the fact that my dad used to give me beer, like I said, when I was really young, and then my aunt gave me wine. Crazy. Patrick says, DARE class in 5th grade got me. DARE. One of the absolute just worst ideas in the history of drug treatment. That even the government saw that and yanked it. Spanx Calhoun, good to see you. Some of the stuff that they did in DARE is horrendous. I mean, it borders on not human. You know, where you had the instructors literally saying, do your mom and dad do anything? You know what I mean? Like late at night, you get, I mean, what kind of crap is that? You know, teaching kids to rat on their family and then, oh, that's just, boy, I had a problem with all of that. I really did. And unfortunately, I missed that generation. They started doing that after I was already gone. So, I think most of us can agree that there are a ton of pluses, a ton of them. Truthfully, I could go the next 30 minutes and I could continue to come up with very positive things that might happen in our society based on eliminating the prohibition on all of these substances. First of all, gang violence, the shootings in the street and all that, when they say they're fighting over turf, you understand what that means, right? They're fighting over who's going to be able to sell dope on that corner. This is our corner. That's what they mean by turf, not you can't hang out here. Don't be selling dope on our street. It's a business. And that's usually where all of this really, really awful, violence starts coming from. So in theory, we should cut down a lot on gang violence. We really should. Now, how about the amount of money that we're not going to spend? Second largest budget in the U.S. How about all of that cash we're not going to spend on the war on drugs? Because on the other side of the ledger, people are going to say, on the downsides, you know how many people are going to just go in and try drugs they never would have done before because now they can do it? You know, there are a lot of people in this country that didn't try acid because they knew it was illegal and they just don't want to break the law. But now that there's no law, they're going to go in there and go, I want some acid, get me some mushrooms, put in a little Coke, some of that blue crystal meth, and wrap it up and take it home. Is that going to happen? I think, yeah, it will. I really do. I think it'll definitely happen. But I don't think it's going to happen for the rest of eternity. I think that's a one-generation thing. The group that sees the transformation from illegal to legal, there's going to be a percentage of that population that goes in and begins to try drugs because they don't feel there's any consequences left to it. So we'll see a bit of a spike. But the number of those people who end up addicted, those numbers don't ever change. They really don't. You throw all the dope you want into a society. People are going to abuse it. There's going to be a segment that use it and use it when they want, turn off. People not like us, right? And depending on the substance, somewhere between 3 and 8% will end up in an addiction kind of a situation where they cannot quit and they're going to need help. Those numbers seem consistent across the board. So whether or not we make this stuff legal or illegal, that's not going to change that. You know? But you know what it will do? You think about the DARE program, and you guys are all talking about, the different things that you remember from the drug education and this and that. The generation that will be coming up behind the generation to see this legalized, their kids, their nieces and nephews, right? The next group coming up, they will do less dope than any other group in history. Bank on it. And the reason is you're not going to have to do drug education for those kids because they will have seen an idiot on every substance on the planet. Remember how I was talking about, okay, if it's meth, you get that vision in your head of that one person. Well, the kids are going to see that person everywhere. They are. And you say, well, everyone doesn't do that. You're right. But the ones that don't look like that, you don't notice. You don't. I mean, I knew a ton of people that did meth on the daily and wore suits and ties and went to work. And the ones that we really notice are that 3 to 8% that get so hopelessly addicted to it that they trade everything in life for the next bag, including hygiene, teeth, all of it, right? But the generation is going to see that. They're going to see it for coke. They're going to see it for heroin. They're going to see it for everything. And very often it's going to be a relative. And if it's not going to be a relative, it's going to be somebody in the neighborhood. So this is going to be education, but it's going to be a real education. Hands-on, right? Empirical stuff. Not book learning or listening to somebody like me. Captain, if I could just go buy benzos, there's a good chance you'd suddenly stop hearing from me. Sad but true. I don't think I could. M. Hunt, I don't doubt that for a second. I really don't. And I'll be honest. If I didn't have what I have, right? If I wasn't taking buprenorphine, when they said, okay, all opiates are legal, fortunately, hey, it's the guy. Good to see you, the guy. Fortunately, that has kind of been answered prayer for me. But are we going to see that? We're going to see that. Absolutely we are. We're going to see individuals that are going to go wild. But the numbers are probably going to be smaller than what we're seeing now. And, I certainly would not be the one to make the decision. And I would love to believe that isn't true, M. Hunt. But I understand where you're coming from. I really do. I really do. And this is a perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about, right? On the other side of the ledger, the things that really are going to be awful if we legalize all this stuff. Well, there's the first one, right? There is the first one. There are going to be people who are just walking the line, right? That are barely walking the line. Yeah, madman. The difference is if you can do that in a store and it's legal, right? You're also going to be looking at prices that are, the reason that drugs are expensive is not because they're expensive to make. It's not because they're expensive to transport. Drugs are expensive because they're illegal. And when you make anything illegal, you create a black market and then they can put whatever price on it they want because you have to have it. ZW, thank you. Good to see you. You know what? As consistent as anyone in the world. I agree, M. Hunt. Love you, Zen Wen. Oh no, the guy, did you find someplace else? CK, good to see you. So I am all over hearing anybody's opinion on this. I really am. I try to avoid the chat sometimes. I would really love to know where you guys weigh in on this. I mean, again, there are way more negatives than just that. There really are. For one, you really, as a country, are accepting defeat, and you're saying that $1 trillion that we spent for nothing. We got nothing out of it. In fact, we created the cartels. We did. With our purchasing habits, we created that trash. And that's one of the reasons we're where we are now. Cemetery, good to see you. I'm not happy that they want to legalize everything, says Miss V. I struggle with this so hard. I think where we're at is we're going to lose 500 people a day, and it's going to go up. Or we're going to legalize this, and we don't know how many people we're going to lose a day. We don't know. But if the stigma is gone, and if people aren't worried about getting arrested or going to prison, I think that you're going to see a lot more people that are willing to say, quick, get over here, somebody just fell, right? Really, really, I think you're going to see a lot more people that are really helping. Oh, wow. We need to start educating our children, says M. Hunt. I agree with you. More than anything in the entire world. More than anything in the entire world. And we don't. Hey, Monk, good to see you. And we don't at all. Legalized drugs equals more tax money to fight addiction. Seventh, it's a really solid point because it's the truth. Now, if they do that, right? Because we've already seen in places where the weed is legal, they always say, well, we're going to put that into education. And I don't mean drug education. I mean the education of our students. And that's not where it's going. The government's, it's so easy to say that until bags of money start coming in. And then you can think of so many other things that you just got to do real quick first. You know, I talk to my daughter all the time about how poisonous alcohol can be. No one ever did that for me. Well, then that's a beautiful thing, Emma. You know, breaking the chain is a huge, huge thing. My grandkids now know who Tommy Scoville is. He's bald. There you go. Bald like daddy. Nice. That's, I don't know if that's good or scary or a little bit of both. Mixed feelings on it, says David Kimball. Personally, I'd worry for a lot of us here. But as a nation, I think eventually we'd see the numbers of deaths go down. David, we would not be the first country to do this, right? There are countries now on this planet that said, we're going to legalize everything. Everything. Some did it with the model of you can go to a dispensary and buy anything, or you can buy it at a pharmacy kind of a thing. And a couple of them just said, we're going to decriminalize it so you can't get in trouble. That, however, does not get rid of drug dealers, you know? And so it's a difficult thing to figure out exactly how you were going to do it, but they saw deaths drop like you wouldn't believe. Drop like you would not believe. But they also took all of that money that they used to put into kicking in people's doors and doing all of that, and they set up places all over the city, right? Where if you think you're addicted, you can walk into any one of them and go, I can't get off this crap. I need some help. And they go, yeah, come on to the back. Right? Got a bed for you. No problem. Because the tax dollars on this stuff is paying for all of this. So come on in. And they don't treat those people like lepers, right? The whole society is well aware of how this is working now. And it is working. The irony is this. Do you know how those countries manage to make all substances legal? Sounds like a silly question, doesn't it? I mean, it's their country. All they got to do is say all drugs are legal, right? No, it doesn't work that way. Because the US of A will twist your arm and they will tell you, you will never get another dollar from the United States of America. You will get no aid, right? Even if you have a natural disaster, we're not going to send you a dollar if you legalize all of these substances. I can't wrap my brain around that, but it's a fact. Every single country said it. You know, we had to give up all of the funding that we get from the United States. Fortunately, the taxes on all of these drugs have made it so that doesn't hurt that much. But for whatever reason, we are vicious about wanting drugs illegal all over the world. I kind of feel like maybe we have a 3-letter agency and our government doesn't want them having to compete in the drug dealing market. Honestly, I have no idea, but I have come to a fork in the road, people. I don't like the idea of legalized drugs. I don't. But now I'm to the point where I just can't stand watching what's happening. And it's getting worse. It's not going to get better. It's getting worse. The substances are getting nastier and nastier, right? As if Fent wasn't ugly enough. Now we've got Trank, a lot of really heavy stuff. So decisions kind of have to be made. Swiss Babe, good to see you, my brother. Hope you're doing well. Clowns in America, says Franklin MC. Yes, absolutely. I want to grow my own plants as I use it for pain. I think that'd be a great idea, Heather Joey. Weed is different, Tommy. It's usually a relaxing drug unless you find the kind that has the other stuff mixed in it. Here's the thing. I've never badmouthed cannabis to anybody. I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. And truth be told, I don't have a problem with any of the others. I can't do them. I'm a drug addict, and I'm the kind of drug addict that can't do anything because that's just who I am. I'm not saying that's who anybody else is, but I've never busted anybody's chops for using. If you get addicted, I would really like to see you live a life that you're not addicted, right? Because it's a terrible way to live. But I've never badmouthed the substance. I don't think I would ever want to. It will work if done correctly. It was proven in the 90s before the USA put it to an end by pressuring the UK. Watch the 60-minute episode, 95, I believe. Fascinating. And they were giving people crack. I mean, they literally were taking care of anything that people were addicted to, and it was working beautifully. And then the USA said, you're not going to get another dollar, and blah, blah, blah. M. Hunt says, I hate addiction above anything else. Me too. This is not an anti-drug channel. It's an anti-addiction channel. I got friends that get high. I can't be with them, but I'm not mad at them. If they can control that stuff, that's fantastic. Chuck Norris, good to see you. All right. But the day is coming where you're going to get to vote on this. And it will not be a nationwide thing. This is going to be something that is done state by state. Oregon is leading the charge. And that whole Pacific Northwest area of the United States, they're all sort of jumping in on it. But they have started out the way they always do, right? It's not full legal. It is a decriminalized at this point. Right now it's decriminalized, so you can't really get in any trouble with it. Monk, I love this boat too, and it's good to see you, bud. I mean that. It really is one of those situations that if you have an opportunity to vote, it's probably a good idea to really think this out before it gets there. Boy, is Oregon ever. Yeah, they have blown it wide open with psilocybin. I think you can get caught with up to 1 ounce of heroin, 1 ounce of meth. I think the cutoff is like 28 grams. So, Conky Dong, I have 2. I grew from seeds and then I took cuttings, and I grew weed for a decent period of time. I used to grow a lot of it. Like I was really, really into it. But and it's a fun. Honestly, it's a fascinating plant. It's a lot of fun to watch them grow, and it's rewarding more than just the stuff's worth a lot of money or whatever. When I was doing it, it was really, really illegal. I was bowled over when Utah allowed medical cannabis. Utah, well, there's something to that. Johnny says, I grew a little in my time. I told the story on the boat before, but we had a friend across the street from his house when I think I was like, I was really, really young because he was really, really young. And his grow room caught on fire. I believe that would be Mr. Corona's grow room. Cliff Corona. You think we should call him? Hell no. this better not come out of left field to anybody, because it's coming. It's coming to a referendum near you, and it's going to be really interesting. My gut tells me that the first time it gets there, it'll get shot down. Like the first time I saw the state of Vermont vote to legalize marijuana was 1986. Crazy, right? 1986. And we laughed. There's no way that's passing. And then, flash forward to a couple of years ago, they didn't put it on the ballot. They were the first state in the U.S. to say, we're not even going to have anybody vote on it. We're just going to ratify it into the Vermont Constitution right now, and it's going to go legal. We're not even going to ask the people. We think it needs to be done. So I believe that we're going to see it. I believe that we're going to see this decriminalization work. There are going to be places that it works. I think there are going to be places it doesn't. And it'll be an interesting thing to see, why does it work here and not work there, right? What are they doing so wrong and what are these people doing so right? But with the death toll rising the way it is, something has to be done. And, I'm open for any and all suggestions of how we might fight this without tapping out. But I honestly have gotten to a place where I just don't see it. It's sad, but I don't see any other way out. I wish that I did. I live here in Georgia. There are a lot of bigoted people who have that disgusting mindset. Yeah. Well, the narrow-minded is not a great thing. You can really disagree with people without being closed-minded or being a jackass. I don't know either, Cap, says CK. Boy, I'd love to come up with something. I really would. And I feel like we all can do our part with our kids. Really. We can get viciously active in the battle, right? The war on drugs, there's not a lot we can do in the war on drugs, but we can win the battles. We can say it's not going to be my kid, and it's not going to be my nephew, and it's not going to be my niece, because I'm just going to talk about it every single time I see him. I'm going to make it like rote learning. They're just going to hear it so often, it's going to be like the ABCs. So that when someone goes, hey, I got some pills. Let me guess, got an M30 on them? No, I don't want those. I stopped smoking after over a decade of heavy use because eventually I realized it was just making me anxious and depressed. Weed was like my best friend, always there for me, but not good for me. That's huge. It really is. There are people that will never come to that conclusion and trust and believe they're in the same place. But they just, I don't know if it's self-awareness. There's a great clip of film on it's a short of a little boy who's eating an onion. And because he says to his mother, he wants to eat, and his mother's like, that's not an apple, right? That's an onion, and you're not going to like this. But this obstinate little kid, he's right, she's wrong. So when finally she's like, all right, go ahead. This kid was going to eat that entire onion to prove this woman wrong. Like, he was necking this thing, and he had the most miserable look you've ever seen, and like tears coming down. But he was going at that thing like it was really, really tasty. I think that there are people in the drug game like that, especially when it comes to cannabis. I think that there are people who, talked about it's harmless and, this and that for so long that even if they start feeling a little off, there's a really good chance that they may not stop. I had a 600 watt HPS light that made my power meter go Speedy Gonzales. And within a month, helicopters were circling overhead. Abort! Abort! I had sun circles, right? 1,000 watts on the sun circles. And we had like 3 of them. But, and it was in Salt Lake City. But we had hollowed out everything. And I shouldn't be telling tips like this. But what you do is, When you first get in there, you run everything. Like keep the washer and dryer on 24/7. Have 2 refrigerators plugged in because they suck down more power than anything. And from the very first time that you enter that place, every light stays on, everything. So that your base electric bill is through the roof for a really long period of time. So 3, 4, 5 months, and you're paying that $300 a month electric bill or whatever the case may be. A heater in your hot tub. I mean, if you could turn that baby on, you turn it on. And then pull the plug on all of it. And you turn on your system. And your lights are on 24 hours a day until it's time to bud. And so, you had to keep that. You really had to keep that balance. Because that was at a time where if your bill looked a little hinky, if it went from this to that, oh yeah, they were coming. They were definitely coming. Brandon Calloway says, I quit smoking over a year. And I never put people on blast or anything, but he has been reaching out to me talking about wanting to do an interview. Hey, Mike McRitchie, good to see you. So I was having a conversation with somebody today about interviewing people on the boat. And make no mistake, if we could, we would interview people. If I could, I would interview people every single day. There's nothing more fun. It takes a whole lot less effort, right? I don't have to put together much of anything. I just ask questions. I am, Mike, thank you so much. There's a standing invitation. You want to tell your story on the lifeboat, reach out, send me an email, and we will make that happen. It's a standing offer. I've never tried to keep anybody from doing that. It's the vast majority do not want to come on here and sort of spill their life story. And I don't blame them. It certainly opens you up to a whole lot of crap. It really does. But there's something really rewarding about it. There's something really great about just getting all of that off of your chest. I might, but it won't be until after jury trial is over. I think that's legit, Miss V. This boat has made me realize how much drugs have affected my life. Some sad, some humorous. I knew as a kid to razor Nick MJ to move the chemicals up the stem. Yeah, that is definitely helps. Definitely helps. Cemetery, take care of yourself. I can barely string together 2 sentences, so you won't be seeing me on here. You know what, Conky Dongs? You'd be really surprised. I've definitely taken a hit. The communication skills, they ain't what they used to be. At some point, I'm going to find a clip of me back when I worked, and I'll put it on, and you people will be like, who is that? Seriously, I used to be a whole lot sharper than I am now. Story time with Uncle Bill, or should we say Grandpa? Hey, Tommy and crew, hope everyone is having a good night. You too. That would be Grandpa Bill, a new grandfather. How cool is that? I've been listening. Sorry, been making bread and rice wine. Okay, kind of bread. I love homemade bread, man. I really do. I love homemade bread. You know what, though? Nothing will make you fat quicker. There really is nothing that will beef you up faster. It's horrible because I cannot. It is my weakness more than anything. I can cut out everything else, man. But, oh, boy, if I start... Once I get onto it, I went, I think, 5 years and did not eat a piece of bread when I was getting my last 5 years in the feds. I did not eat a piece of bread. I didn't eat cake. I didn't eat anything. I was just trying to shred up before I left, and I did. I got out of there looking like I wanted to look, and then turned into this. Bread is my dad's drug of choice. Your dad, and a lot of other people. A lot of other people. Unless you're working, you can burn it off that way. Yeah, not the kind of work I do, though, Daniel. Yeah, if I was actually working that kind of... But definitely not the kind of work I'm doing. I could drink gallons of fat and eat 3 loaves of bread a day and never gain a pound. Boo that man! Boo that man! Yeah, all that musical talent, huh? And then you can just eat like a Viking and not put on a pound. And he's got a full head of hair. Somebody hit him with a wrench. Somebody close to him, just smack him with a wrench. My son says, that's me. He can eat as much as he wants to, apparently. I just have to stare at it and I'll put on weight. You know what I mean? I don't even have to eat it. Stacy Michael says, lucky you, M. Hunt. You can't see what she's saying in her house, though, right? She's calling you every single. You would not believe the things that she's calling you. There's Stacy Michaels gets it. Boo! Boo this man. It's one of my favorite scenes ever. No, don't you retract that. He had that coming. Boo! You can drink fat. You know something? And I would too. I would. I can't. I won't bring that up because that's a punchline for a later date. I almost blew it because that's when I drop this punchline. I will tell you why I didn't drop it tonight because it's going to be funny. Pancakes with butter and syrup, real syrup. Real syrup. Swiss vape, you may not believe this. I couldn't do that if I wanted to. I don't have any idea how. It's a true story. I've never given anybody anything. Man, I show up here, I hit play, and I talk into this thing, right? That my skill stops right here. This is where it stops, right there. And I don't even have a lot of that skill, but I'm willing, right? I'm willing. Yeah. I like fake butter flavored syrup. Oh, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Oh, it's awful. It's awful. I have drank fat on more than once. Look at what you did to M. Hunt. I gotta go, Cap. I do too. All right, peeps. Yeah, that's legit. That's legit. I think we're at the top of the hour anyway. Alrighty, people. Did I hear pancakes and real syrup? Yes, you did. Real syrup. Alrighty, everybody. I will be back tomorrow morning. Early. In fact, it'll be about 12 hours from right now. I'll be at this desk. Can't guarantee the cat will be with me. She's hell on wheels in the morning. Alrighty, everybody. Between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody, eh? Hey, Greg F., good to see you. I am Captain Tommy Scoville. And that's a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. We love you. Well done, Squirrel Nut Zipper.